A quiet Tokyo suburb, a family preparing for the new year, a brutal massacre that left investigators with more questions than answers. DNA, fingerprints, even the killer's own clothing, left behind. Yet, more than 20 years later, he remains a ghost. How is that possible? Why was this family targeted? And how did the killer vanish without a trace? This is the chilling, unsolved mystery of the Setagaya Family Murders, one of Japan's most haunting crimes. It was the evening of December 30th, 2000, in Setagaya, a quiet suburban district of Tokyo. The Miyazawa family, Mikio, Yasuko, and their two young children, Nina and Rei, were in their home, likely looking forward to the upcoming New Year celebrations. It should have been an ordinary night, but by morning, they would all be dead. The crime was brutal, shocking, and deeply disturbing. This wasn't just a murder, it was a massacre. The family was slaughtered in their own home, and yet, the killer didn't just flee the scene. He stayed for hours. He ate food from their fridge, used their bathroom, and even logged onto their computer. He left behind evidence that should have made him easy to track: his DNA, fingerprints, and even his own clothes. And yet, despite this overwhelming forensic trail, he was never caught. More than 2 decades later, Japan remains haunted by this case. How is it possible that a killer who left so much behind could simply disappear? Mikio Miyazawa was a hardworking father, employed at an advertising firm. His wife, Yasuko, was a devoted mother who took care of their home and children. Their 8-year-old daughter, Nina, was a bright and cheerful girl, while their 6-year-old son, Rei, was a quiet child who struggled with a speech disability. They lived in a modest 2-story home in Setagaya, a peaceful neighborhood where most families had already moved away due to planned redevelopment. By the end of 2000, only a few houses in the area were still occupied, making their home unusually isolated. That isolation may have made them the perfect target. The last confirmed interaction anyone had with the Miyazawas was around 9:30 p.m. when Yasuko spoke with her mother, who lived next door. Everything seemed completely normal, but sometime between 10:30 p.m. and midnight, the killer entered their home. A neighbor later reported hearing a loud thud around 11:30 p.m., possibly the moment when Mikio was attacked. However, no one realized the horror unfolding inside the house until the next morning. On the morning of December 31st, Yasuko's mother called their home. No answer. Worried, she walked next door and entered the house. What she found inside was beyond anything she could have imagined. Mikio was lying at the bottom of the stairs, lifeless, covered in stab wounds. Upstairs, Yasuko and Nina were also dead, wrapped in bloody blankets. The youngest child, Rei, had been strangled in his bed. The crime scene was gruesome, chaotic, and horrifying. But what made this crime even stranger was what the killer did after the murders. Most criminals, after committing such a violent act, would flee immediately. They would try to cover their tracks, leave as little evidence as possible, and get as far away from the crime scene as they could. But not this killer. He stayed in the house for hours, behaving as if he had no fear of being caught. He raided the kitchen and ate 4 containers of ice cream. He drank tea and left the wrappers from his meal scattered around. He went to the bathroom and used the toilet, leaving his waste behind without bothering to flush. He logged onto the family's computer, accessing websites at 1:18 a.m. and again at 10:05 a.m. Some reports suggest he even took a nap on the couch before leaving. Then, as bizarre as it sounds, he left behind his own clothing. A sweater, scarf, and gloves, items that could have been traced back to him, were all abandoned at the scene. It was almost as if he wanted to be caught. Yet, despite the overwhelming evidence he left behind, he vanished without a trace. This was not the kind of crime where the killer covered his tracks. He made mistakes. He left behind his own DNA, fingerprints, and blood. Investigators found his blood mixed with the victim's, suggesting he had injured himself during the attack. His fingerprints were all over the house, on the computer, on the food packaging he touched, and on the staircase railing. The clothes he left behind gave police even more clues. The sweater he wore was a limited edition item, sold in only a few stores. His shoes were identified as a specific type of Slazenger sneaker, only sold in South Korea. His blood type was type A. Even the sand found in his clothing was traced to a specific area in California or Nevada. With this much forensic evidence, solving the case should have been easy. But incredibly, his DNA and fingerprints matched no records in Japan. With so much evidence but no clear suspect, theories about the killer's identity began to emerge. Some believed he was a Korean national, given that his shoes were only sold in South Korea. Others thought he might be an American soldier or a traveler from the US, based on the sand found in his clothing. One chilling theory suggested that he was a professional hitman, hired to target the Miyazawa family for reasons unknown. But this didn't quite add up. Professional assassins don't tend to stay at the crime scene for hours, eat ice cream, and browse the internet. Another possibility was that the killer was someone with a personal vendetta against the family, but Mikio was not involved in any criminal activity or known disputes. There was also speculation that the murderer was mentally unstable, possibly a drifter or someone living in Japan illegally, which could explain why his DNA didn't match any criminal records. Despite countless theories, the truth remains unknown. Even with all the forensic evidence, the killer remains unidentified. This has led to serious questions about whether Japan's law enforcement made critical mistakes in handling the case. For years, police failed to share important details with the public. Some believe authorities mishandled evidence, while others think there was a lack of coordination with international agencies that might have helped identify the suspect. With no clear leads, the case eventually grew cold. The Setagaya Family Murders remain one of Japan's most haunting mysteries. Every year, on the anniversary of the crime, police release new statements in hopes that someone will come forward with information. Yet so far, no real breakthrough has been made. The killer would be at least in his 40s or 50s by now. If he is still alive, he may have moved to another country, changed his identity, or simply gone into hiding. But with modern advances in DNA technology, there is still a chance that one day, a match will be found. More than 2 decades have passed, but the horror of that night still lingers. The Miyazawa family should have been celebrating the new year together. Instead, they became victims of one of the most bizarre and terrifying crimes in Japan's history. Who was the man that entered their home that night? Why did he kill them so brutally? And how did he manage to disappear despite leaving behind so much evidence? It's a case that should have been solved, yet remains one of Japan's most disturbing unsolved crimes. Maybe one day, the truth will come to light. Until then, the Setagaya family murders remain a chilling reminder that sometimes, even when all the evidence is right in front of us, the answers still slip through our fingers. Thank you for watching, but remember, the truth is always lurking in the shadows. If you're brave enough, subscribe for more true stories, because the next mystery might be closer than you think.